Hello and welcome to Coding and a Cup of Java, lecture number 5, switch statements and methods. So we're going to start with switch statements, and then later on in the lecture, about halfway through, we're going to talk about methods. But since methods are quite a big subject, we're going to continue with methods the next lecture as well. But let's get started with switch statements. But to do so, I'm actually going to start coding with some if statements, and you will see. So I'm going to start with an if statement, and then I'm going to recode what I'm coding now using a switch statement. So I will describe exactly what a switch statement is, but first I'm going to show you this example. So we can check if this variable equals 0, and if so, we want to print out that the value is 0. Value is 0, like this. And if that's not the case, then we can do like else if my variable equals 1. And if that's the case, then we want to print out that the value actually is 1, like this. And then if that's not the case, then we might want to print out, well, you know, maybe it equals to 2, like that. So as you can see now, it's a bit well, annoying to use, well, do else ifs, and else if. So in this specific I screwed it up. In this specific instance, we could use something called a switch statement instead. Value is something else. Here we go. So if I have something like that, it's obviously going to type out values 2 because our value is 2. So if we want to do something like this, we have one value, one variable with a value, and then we want to compare that against different values, and depending on what that value is, we want to do specific things. If we want that, we can use, like I said, a switch statement. So we start with the same thing, like this, and then we do switch. So we type switch there, and then we type the value we want to use. That's the value of my variable. And what we can do then is case 0. So this basically means that if our variable has the value 0, then we can, well, then the code will continue just after case 0, like this. So I can print out system.out.println value is 0, and to do another case, I can do case 1, like that. So you do the case, and then value, and then a colon, like that, and then the code will continue afterwards here. But at the moment, I'm actually doing something that is a bit wrong, which I will show you in just a sec. So the code I'm coding now is not going to do the same thing as what we had before in the other one, in the if version. So then we do here println, and then value is 2, like so. And if we want to have like we had up here, an else, and then like value something else, we want to print that out if none of the cases match, then we can do so by using default. So we have default there, so that's our default case, and then we can print out value is something else. But like I said, this is not really going to work. If I run it now, it's going to say value is 2, and then it's going to say value is something else as well. If I run this again with my variable as 0 and run it, it's going to print out all the different things. So why is this happening? Well, basically, a switch statement, what that does is we have a variable here, we have a value, and then we do a switch on that value. And in this case, the value was 0, and therefore case 0 here is true. So we will continue and run our code here, but that doesn't mean that we will stop as soon as we find another case. We will just continue. So we run that one, and that one, and that one, and finally this last one. So we never break out of it, which might have given you a clue of what we can do if we want to break out. If we want to break out, so every case just runs its own code, then we use the break like this. So it's the same thing that we used to break out of loops. And there's no reason to put it here in the end because, well, we'll exit out anyways. So if I run it now, it's going to say value is 0, yes, because the value was 0. And if I run it all again with value as 2, it's going to save value as 2, like that. So the reason why I don't have a break on the default one, it's not because it's the default one, it's because it's the last one. And the default one doesn't have to be the last one. I can move the default one and put it in the top. But then I need to make sure that I have a break here. And since the case 2 is the last one now, I can remove the break like that. It's not going to make a difference. So this was just some of the syntax. It might be a bit tricky to understand exactly everything, so let's get cracking with an example, shall we? Right. Okay, reset that interactions pane. No need for it. So right, this example is going to use some input from the user, and what I'm going to make is actually a calculator, a very simple calculator, but still a calculator. So the user will be able to type like 3 plus 2, and then it's going to output 5. So if you input 10 times 2, it's going to output 20, and things like that. So we need a public static void main, and then fs. So this is the thing we always do. That string array there. Right, so first of all we need a scanner, like always, equals new scanner system.n, and we want to print out to the user, please enter your like math expression, please enter your simple math expression. So note that I don't really tell the user exactly how that is supposed to happen, which is a bit bad, but I'm going to stick with this now because this calculator is a very basic example. So if this would be a real program, you would probably tell the user exactly how to do it. Like, well, you can do it like doing this and that, and you can't do it like this, for instance. But now we want to actually get the expression from the user, and the expression is going to be built up by one number, one operator, and then another number. So you can't have like 1 plus 2 minus 3. That's not going to be possible in this simple calculator. So then we do number 1 here, and yeah, we read the first integer. Then we want to read the operator. And the thing is, there's nothing really called, next char. That doesn't exist. So what I'm going to do is just read the next word and then grab the first character there. The reason why I don't want the string itself is because you can't use switch statements on well, on strings, on more complex types. You can only do it on the primitive types, like integers, boolean values, chars, floats, things like that. So then we do switch operator. So what I'm going to do here is doing different things depending on which operator the user wants to use. So if the user wants to use addition, then we want to calculate the result in some way. If the user wants to do subtraction, then we want to calculate it differently. If the user wants to do multiplication, then a third way. There's int result, so I have the result there, and then I can do case plus. So if the user entered the operator to be addition, then we want to calculate the result as number 1 plus number 2, like that, and then break out, because we don't want to calculate anything else, because otherwise it would then overwrite the result by subtraction, because subtraction comes afterwards. So we do result equals number 1 minus number 2. We break out there, and then we do case multiplication there, and then we do result equals number 1 times number 2. So as you can see, we could do this with an if statement, if a lot of if statements combine to make if else and else ifs, but it's quite handy to just do it like this. It's easy to see what's going on, it's easy to read it, and yeah, but like I said, it has a few restrictions. We can't use it with strings, and we can only use it for one value and things like that. And then finally, I'm actually going to allow allow it to use mod as well. So then we do result equals number1 mod number 2. Like that. And finally a break, and then we do a default value here. So this happens if you don't enter that thing, well, any valid operator. So it's just going to print out invalid operator. Like that. And also what I'm going to do is doing this. So I just type return there, and that's going to exit the program. A few things to note here. Just because you type return in your program doesn't mean it's going to end. And just because I'm using it to exit the program here, it doesn't mean that return is used only to exit the program. Later on in this lecture we will see exactly what return does, but in this specific program it's actually going to work to be used as a command to exit the program itself. So if you didn't enter a valid operator, then we'd print out, well, this wasn't valid, let's exit the program. However, if we have done that, then we can print out the result here in the end. So you can do print out the result, and then also print it out, obviously. And yeah, just number1 plus a space plus the operator plus another space plus the second number. So first of all, we just print out what we're calculating, and then the equality there, and then we just add a result like that. If we compile it now, save it, and yeah, result, hit compile, compilation completed, nice. And now if I run it, it's going to ask me for a simple math expression. So please enter your simple math expression. So then I type, for instance, 5 times 3. Then it's going to print out something wrong. As you can see here now, it's not doing things properly. It's going to give me 11.4 equals 15. What's that? So we can see that this is correct, the second part, but the first part is not correct. And the reason is, if I have chars here, like this is just a character, just because I have that, it assumes that I want to add these ones together as integers, because each character is stored as an integer. So you have character at index 1, at index 2, at index 3, and so on and so forth. And therefore it's not going to calculate this properly, and we're going to get very weird results. It's going to a space, if you get the index of the space, you get 32. So we have 32 plus 32, that's 64. Then we have number 1, which was 5, and then we add 3, and then we add a character there. So the simplest way to do this is just to add these as spaces, well, as strings instead, because then it's going to concatenate these two, then concatenate it with that, and concatenate it with that, and so on and so forth. So just because if you have different types, like we had integers and characters, it's quite tricky to know exactly how it's going to put those together. So if we have integers and integers, it's just addition. If we have strings and strings, it's just concatenation. If we have a mix, yeah, it might be a bit tricky to know, and therefore it thought that you wanted to convert a char to an integer and then add those together, and the result just wasn't what we expected. So now if I run it like this, and type 5 times 3, it's going to do it properly. So now we get 5 times 3 equals 15. I can run it again with 20 plus 2. It's going to work. I can run it with like 20 divided by 5. So as you can see, it's still everything works here. And what's going on here is quite simple. We create the scanner, we print out the message to the user, and then we read the first number, and then we read the operator by getting the next word and getting that character, and finally we read the last integer. Then we do a switch here, so we can do different things depending on the operator. So if the operator was a plus, then we want to calculate it with addition. If the operator was minus, then we want to calculate it with subtraction, and so on, multiplication, division, and mod there. And if none were the correct one, if we didn't have a valid one, then we're going to exit the program, which we can try here. So if I type 10 at 3, that's not a valid operator, so then it's going to say invalid operator and exit out. One important thing is this, actually. If I remove that, we're going to have an issue. It's going to say variable result might not have been initialized. And what that means is that we are trying to use the value of result here. But when we create it up here, we're not giving it any value. We just declare it like that. But when here we give it a value, here we give it a value, here we give it a value, and so on, but we don't give it a value here. But however, if we type return to exit the program, then when we reach this point here, we won't continue all the way here. So when we need to have the value of the result, we will actually have it, because we have 5 different options on how we can reach that output thing in the end, and all of them are setting the result value, and the last possible code path here is going to exit the program, so we will never reach this part here. So it's very important, the compiler will understand that well, this might cause problems, so it's very good to always give the variables values from somewhere, otherwise it's not going to work. And that's exactly why I want to exit the program here. Otherwise I would have to give result some other value, and then it would print out weird things. So the best thing is just to exit the program if we had an invalid operator. Right. Okay, so what we can do more is, well, I'm going to do something else here. So maybe we want to allow the user to use x as well for multiplication. You know, 5 times 3, you can do like 5x3. That's possible, right? So what I could do is like result equals number 1 times number 2, you know, and break out. But I already have that, right, down here. It's the same thing, it's the exact same thing. So what I could do is just that. So now if the operator is an x, like that, then we're going to start here, but we don't have anything there. We don't even have a break. So therefore we will just continue and run that thing, and then run the break, and therefore exit out. So as you can see now, I have an example where I have cases without breaks, which is totally possible. You add the breaks to break out after a case, but only if you actually do want that. So let's compile and run this now. Like this. And then we want to have like 5 plus 2, that works totally fine. I can do 5 times 3, that's also totally fine. And I can also do 5 times 3 like that, which is also totally fine. So like I said, an example of where we have a case here, we actually have a case without content, but we still use it to be able to run the code in the next case. I will soon show you an example, another example, where I'm going to use actually cases without breaks, even though they have content. So I don't have 2 cases that are exactly the same, but still using cases without breaks. So let's get going with that. Okay, so this is also going to contain some user input. So we import a scanner, and then we do public class. I'm just going to call it switch example. So this example is going to contain 2 different switches, so switches inside each other actually, and one of them is, like I said, going to have some cases that, well, don't use a break. It's because that's what we want in this scenario. And then we want to have the scanner itself at that. So now we can get going to code. So this program is going to sort of simulate this. So what I just did was tell it to close the file I was working in, and it says save untitled file. Untitled file has been modified, would you like to save it? And I don't know why the buttons here are in Swedish, but it basically says yes, no, and cancel. And that's what I'm going to simulate. So when you have that, you might want to save it and close it. You might don't want to save it and close it, or you want to go back to the file, and I want to go back to the file. So that's what I'm going to do, but with numbers instead to do that simulation. And I'm actually going to do a infinite loop here, but it's just infinite if we don't break out of it, which is exactly what I'm going to do if you want to exit the program. So we're going to give the user a few options here, but first we want to print out the number of the user. So it's basically the user have a number, and then you can get a new number and save that new number. You will see in a bit what this example is all about. And then the option for the user. What would you like to do? Like that. Okay. Two options here. So we can do two things. We can first of all change number, and second of all, what did I forget? Oops. Second of all, we can exit the program. So that's how we're going to exit the loop. The user decides to exit the program. Then we can do exit program like this. Okay. So now we're going to do a switch here and get the option from the user. And well, we could store this in a variable, or we could just do it like this. We could just get the value right away. So we do a switch on the next integer that we get from the user. Okay, fine with me. There you go. And that should be a semicolon. Sorry. Okay. So the first case is well, is if we want to change the number, and here we want to do something, but I'm going to write that code in a bit. And then the second case is going to be if we want to exit the program. So we can do like exit the program, and then I want to print out the final like your final number is like that. And as you can see now, I'm going to use return again to exit the program, and therefore I'm not going to use a break. A break is for breaking out a switch statement, but there's no reason to break out of a switch statement when we break out of the whole program. So here I have a case without a break, but that's just because I have a return. The other switch statement is going to have a cases without breaks that don't even have returns in them. So here we go, invalid option. Okay. So we have an infinite loop here. We print out a option for the user. What would you like to do? Either change your number, exit the program. So just two options there. And if we do want to change the number, there's no code for that yet, so we can't change the number. But if we hit case 2, then we want to exit out. If we type something else, then we're going to get it's going to print out this option is invalid. Well, invalid option. So now if I run it, the program is obviously not done. It says your number is 2, what would you like to do? And then I hit 1 to change the number. Obviously nothing happened, but I will get back again to do the same option screen again. If I do an invalid number, it's going to say it's actually outside of the screen. Invalid option, your number is 2, what would you like to do? And then I can hit 2 to exit the program, and it says your final number is 2. So as you can see, now I have sort of an interface which is infinite. It's going to continue asking me questions as long as I, as the user, don't decide to exit the program. So all of a sudden we have a little program there. We have different options, and this loop there here that always asks us for more things. But obviously we haven't made the other switch statement, which is going to go inside here. So it's a nested switch. We have switches inside switches. Okay. So when you want to change the number, I want to give you the option to well, you type the number in, and then, alright, maybe I wasn't happy with this number, just discard it. So something like I said here, switch example.java has been modified, would you like to save it? Yes, no, or cancel. So that's exactly what I want to do. So when we have decided that we want to what number we will use, that means that we want to exit out. Okay, so therefore I want to loop through this code here as long as decided is false. So we invert decided like that. And remember the break here, we still need a break. That's for this outer switch statement. Okay, there you go. And then we want to ask the user, what would you like to change your number to? So just a simple question there, and then we want to store that. I could store it right away, but the program here is going to allow you to decide if this new number is the thing you want, and therefore we can't store it in number because that's what our current number is. Okay, so then we do system.out.println like this, and print out your old number is, so that's the old one obviously, which is number, and your new one is new number. There you go. Just some information to the user, and then we give it another set of options. So as you can see in this example, I'm using the switch statements as a way of detecting which option the user selects and what we're going to do depending on what the user actually asked us to do. What would you like to do? Okay. One option will be, well, we don't want to exit out, we want to continue, we want to pick another number, and that's going to be sort of like doing cancel, you know. We're not done here, we want to edit this a bit more before we exit out, okay? So that's option 1. Option 2 is, well, we have decided we want to use this new number, use the new number. So that's like, well, do you want to save? Yes, we want to save, okay? And the final one is stick with the old one, and that's like typing, saying no. We want to exit out, but we don't want to save what we're currently working on. So it's like hitting no here, but I want to have my program there, so I hit cancel. Okay. Then we can do another switch here, and this is a switch that is going to use some things without breaks. So let's get another option here, myscanner.nextEnt. Okay. So the first case, that's well, the cancel case, and what we want to do is basically hit break. What this do, like we've seen before, is break out of the switch statement. It's not going to break out of the loop, even though, like we've seen before, that break does exit out of the loops. And the reason why that's the case is because, well, this break is inside the switch statement, so we're just going to break out of the switch statement even though we're inside a loop, which is inside the switch statement, which is inside a loop. So we will always just break out of one thing. So keep that in mind. If you want to break out of a loop, you can't do that directly by just typing break if you're inside a switch statement. You can do that inside an if statement because you can't break out of an if statement. So keep that in mind. Because when we want to pick a new number, we basically want to just, well, ignore the switch statement, and then we will loop again, because if we haven't decided, we're going to continue looping, right? Okay. Case 2 is saving the number. And how do you save the number? Well, since this is such an easy simulation, we just do number equals new number. If it would be like in a program like Dr. Java here, we would have to, well, get all the text, all the code, and save that to a file, and make sure that that saving process went all right, and things like that, and maybe store it in as the latest files that we have used, so we can easily open them later, like this is your recent files, and things like that. So that code would go here, but like I said, since we're just using integers now for it being simple and for us being able to have an example with the switch statement, this saving code is just one line. Okay. Then we have the the third case here, which is stick with the old one, and when we stick with the old one, we just want to break out of the decided loop, because now we have decided. So to do so, we have set decided equals true. We have decided what we want to do, and then we break out of the switch statement, and then we will break out of the while loop, just because decided has set to true. And then if we do well, if the user types something that we don't recognize, then just let's print out that we don't recognize what you're talking about. Invalid option, like that. Okay, so what's going on here now is case 2. What do we want to do when we want to save the new number? Well, first of all, we want to save the number itself, and then we want to break out by having decided equals true and then have a break. Okay, but we already have that in case 3. Right? And therefore, well, I could do decided equals true and then break there. But I can just as fine ignore them, because if we get the option 2 here, the user enters 2, then we'll start executing the code here. We will run that, and finally that. While if we hit 3, the user enters 3, then we will just run decided equals true and break. So what we have here, even though it's a very simple example, we just have one statement for saving and just 2 statements for breaking out of the loop, we still have put 2 cases together where we just have the first one without a break, so we run some extra statements, in this case only 1, before we actually run the part in the other case. So that's what this is going to do. So if I hit compile now, nice, no errors there, I can run it. Your number is 2, what would you like to do? And then we can hit change number. What would you like to change your number to? Well, 42, I guess. Your old number is 2 and your new one is 42. What would you like to do? Okay, so now I can hit pick another number, and now it's going to ask me for another number again, and then I can go 32 instead. Your old number is 2 and your new one is 32. What would you like to do? Okay, so let's use that number. See, I use 2, and therefore I'll get back to the first option, so I can change my number, exit the program, and it tells me that my number is 32. Well, the reason, like I discussed before, is that the integer that the user entered here matches this case, so we will save the number like so, and then continue by setting decided to true and then break out. So we will break out of this decision loop and go back to the outer infinite loop there, and give us the option again. So we save it and break out like that. But however, if I want to change it again, change number, and I want to change it to -22, so your old number is 32 and your new one is -22, what would you like to do? Well, I would like to stick with the old number, please. So then I can do that. Your number is 32, what would you like to do? Exit the program. Your final number is 32. So as you can see now, we have utilized a few different things in this. We have multiple switch statements, we have 2 of them, which are used for checking what the user wants to do. We have them for different cases, so would you like to change your number, exit the program? Then we can detect that quite easily with having a lot of cases. So if we have a lot of options, it's quite easy to see what's going on. So we can just see, alright, this is case 1, we have case 2, and so on. We've also seen how we can put 2 cases together like this. We just forget, not really forget, but we ignore the break here, and therefore we're going to continue into the next case, which is sometimes what we want. But just remember to have breaks where we want them, otherwise the code will continue executing into other cases. So that's actually about it when it comes to switch statements. So they are like an option to if statements, but don't take them for something that can be equally replaced by if statements. If statements can do more things, because switch statements are a bit more specialized of what they do. So you can just do them on primitive types, and you can only check one specific value, but if that's what you want to do, it's very handy to have. So let's get to the other subject of this lecture, methods. So we just have 10 minutes before the break, so I'm just going to introduce them and then continue after the break. Okay, so let's create a program here. So public class method example. So this is the example program, and then we type our main method here, public static void main. Wait, hang on a sec. Yeah. Okay. So this thing that we've always typed here is a method. It's something called a method, and yeah, that's just, we type code in it, and code is going to be run there just because. But we can make our own methods that looks a bit differently. So I just do static void my method, like so, parenthesis there, and then brackets, and now I can type my own code inside here. Why we have void, we're going to talk about after the break. Why we have static, we're not going to talk about until the next course. Usually you don't really use static, but since we haven't covered what the next course will talk about, like objects and stuff, we have to use static there, and that's just how it is. We'll discuss it in the next course. What we have here is the name of our method, which can be like anything, and here we have an empty parenthesis, which we will cover after the break what they can do. So now if I type some some code here, just a very simple thing. So hello, I'm inside a method. Okay. If I do so, then I can then do like this. So what we have up here is something called a method call, and here's our method. So if we type the method's name here and the empty parenthesis here, the group there, then when this statement is being executed, what will happen is that we will continue and run the code inside the method. So if I now hit compile and save that, get some more space there, and if I hit run, it's going to say hello, I'm inside a method. So what's going on here is, well, the main method is going to be run when we run our program, and then that's going to call the other method, and then we're going to run the code inside it. At the moment it's a bit ridiculous why we would have another method here, but we will get some more examples quite soon. Okay, so let's get another method going here. Static void my second method. So we can have multiple methods, no problem. We just name it something else. System.out.println, like so. And let's this one is special. I don't know why it's special. So now if we do my second method here, like that, we will see if we run it, it's going to say hello, I'm inside a method, and then it's going to say I'm special. What's going on here is, well, we start the main method, and the first statement in the main method is that we call my method. We go into my method here, and we run all the statements inside it. At the moment we only have one. When we run all the statements, we're going to continue where we called it from. We called it from up here. Then we're going to move to the next statement, my second method, and it's going to run this code inside my second method, and it's going to type out I'm special. Then we're going to move back where we called it from, which is my second method up here, and we are just going to continue and reach the end of the program. Okay, we can, if we want to, we can run this code again by doing my method twice. So if I compile and run it now, then we're going to see hello, I'm inside a method, hello, I'm inside a method, and then I'm special. So as you can see, if we have a code that we want to be able to use at multiple locations at different times, then we can put it in a method, and we can just call it, and then that that is part of the code is going to be run. At the moment we have a very simple part of code that just prints something else on the screen. We can like put something in between here, like this, and type out I'm still inside the main method, like that. And what we can also do is we can call methods from other methods, because think about it, the main thing here, that's also a method, so there's nothing special to it really. So I can tell my method to call my second method. So if I hit compile now, we're going to get quite a lot of output here. So we have hello, I'm inside a method, then it's going to say I'm special, I'm still, I misspelled still, I'm still inside the main method, hello, I'm inside a method, and then twice of I'm special. So what's going on here is we run the program, so we run the main method here, and then we're going to go inside my method. We want to run the code inside my method, which is first to just print out hello, I'm inside a method. Then we go into run the second statement, which is a call to my second method, and therefore we're going to run the code inside the second method, and it's going to print out I'm special, which we can see here at line 2. When it has run all the statements inside here, it's going to go back from where it was called, which is here. But then it has run all the code inside my method, and therefore go back to where it was called, which is up here. It's going to continue, print out I'm still inside the main method, and then it's going to do the same thing again. So it's going to jump into my method, print the thing out, jump into my second method, print I'm special out, then jump back and finally call my second method right away. So as you can see, what we have now is an ability to type some code in a something that's called method. We can call it so we can run code from wherever we want and run that code that we have written in a specific place. At the moment we're just printing out text, which might seem a bit useless, but in the next part of the lecture, when we dig deeper into these methods, you will see examples on how we can use them, how we can make very handy things with them, so we can save time and also make things easier for us. So that's about it for this part. I'll see you back in about 50 minutes, and like I said, we'll continue about methods then. So see you later.